Certification meeting to order. Welcome all of you here today, those online as well as those that are here before us. We have no licensures coming before the full Board Educational Licensures Committee today. So we will move to the committee will now entertain a motion to ratify the actions from the Educator Licensure Committee's meeting earlier today. The chair of our ELC will read through the ratifications which serve as a motion. Mrs. Kriminger, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Allison. The State Board of Education approves the application of Alicia Davis for certification. The State Board of Education publicly reprimands Debbie Bond, Certificate 229704, and approves the consent order of public reprimand on the grounds of unprofessional conduct. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Alicia A. Kaufman, Certificate 223112, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education publicly reprimands Terry P. Hall, Certificate 220216, and approves the consent order of public reprimand on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Ashley Renee Ivy, Certificate 286153, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Sarah Eleanor Massey, Certificate 322299, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Kayla Alicia Owen, Certificate 271389, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Carrie Danielle Oxendine, Certificate 311279, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Kamisha A. Robinson, Certificate 301448, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Jared Lee Shaw, Certificate 324377, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct of breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of John Robert Sheenan, Certificate 321725, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Zandria Sutton, Certificate 281224, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. The State Board of Education suspends the certificate of Sabrina Zacharek, Certificate 304911, commencing on May 6, 2025, and ending on May 5, 2026, and approves the order of suspension on the grounds of unprofessional conduct for breach of contract. What did I do wrong? On item number 2, there was no action taken. It has been referred back to the Office of General Counsel for further review. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Ms. Kriminger. Do you now have the motion? Motion has been made by Mrs. Kriminger to ratify the work of the Education Licensure Committee. Do I hear a second?
Second. Johnson.
Johnson seconds. Is there any discussion at this time? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise. Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second, Preminger.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed likewise. At this time,
Well, let's get our other members in. open it up
Okay,
to
are
the
they not
public,
all in?
And then we'll get, we know, because there are two that couldn't sit on this.
Oh, that's
So give-
right. Okay.
Give us about 30 seconds, everybody hold tight.
we have two members to bring to their seat.
Because you live up in Greenville,
Saluda.
Saluda, how much far apart?
Hour and a half.
Greenville, Saluda? So you were that much further up?
Well, I'm an hour from Columbia, and then about an hour and a half.
Oh, sure, you're between Greenville.
Like Greenville's here, Saluda's here, and Columbia's here.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Oh, she's already picked them up. But would you like to take those? Here's one cricket.
Did you read over this yet?
Oh, no, I've been knee deep in that. That is,
Are we adjourned?
no, we're getting ready to start.
Is that enough to get us out?
I think so.
Good afternoon. I would like to bring the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session to receive legal advice regarding Regulation 43-170?
Preminger, so moved.
Kreninger. Do I have a second?
Johnson, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? We will recede
We're in executive session.
in executive session. Good afternoon. I'd like to call our State Board of Education to order. We are now out of executive session, and there were no votes or anything taken during our executive session, so thank you for your appearance here today, and thank you for your being willing to wait on us. I want to welcome all of you, and at this time, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance by our co-chair, David Mathis.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
One nation, under God, indivisible, Again, I want to welcome all of you today. Want to remind those of you that will be coming to the microphone and also my fellow board members to be sure and speak into the mic so that we can record and pick up the sound for our minutes. We certainly don't want to leave out any critical information to be transcribed without leaving important information. Is there an objection to approving the minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved for unanimous consent. We want to welcome our visitors, those of you that are here with organizations, those that are here just to see what your state board does. We appreciate the interest that you have in your state board of education. Is there any media with us today? Okay, moving right along. Thank you again for being with us. You know, the month of May has arrived, and it is significant for a very many reasons. Number one, numerous awarenesses and a time for several important holidays. It's also the month when many cultures celebrate the transition from winter. There we go. I'm on now. We celebrate among a few National Nurses Day, Mother's Day, and Happy Mother's Day to all of you that are in the audience today, May Day, Memorial Day, Teachers Appreciation Week in this month, and our Military Appreciation Month, all of that. High school and colleges, graduation is one of the most significant milestones that usually does happen in the month of May. A great time to reflect on the past, celebrate accomplishments, and look forward to the future. It's a time for gratitude to family and friends, and especially to our teachers and our professors. It is a time for that achievement and a chance to envision the possibilities that lie ahead. You know, Nelson Mandela spoke of education as the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. During the turbulence of the early 60s, then President John F. Kennedy delivered a rallying cry to students entering the world to choose peace. And he said, "Let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and to the means by which those differences can be resolved. For in the final analysis, our most common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal." My thoughts in this past week asked the question of where the journey will lead for this year's group of graduates, and how they will leave their mark on our state and our country. And then my thoughts took me to their role models. Have we been that change that we want to see for those coming after us and that are watching us every day? Some will say, you know, Rita, this is just too simple. Respect for human life, respect for self, kindness, leadership, and to not always follow the crowd, honesty, service to one fellow man. Have we done a good job? Our graduates have grown up in a different climate than most of us did. We need a cleansing of hate and disrespect and greed. Each of us, whether we want to be or not, are a role model to someone every day in our household, in our community. We need to be the change that we want in our future and in those young people who are coming after us. The question is, how good a job are we doing? John Murphy wrote Leading with Passion. If you haven't read it, do. He talks about lighting a match in a dark room. Observe the power and the grace of that single, solitary flame dancing with life. Light several other candles and kindle a fire and experience the added warmth and comfort. This is the heart and soul of leadership. It is about courageously casting off fear, doubt, and limiting beliefs, and giving people a sense of hope, optimism, and accomplishment. It is about bringing a light into the world of uncertainty and inspiring others to do the same. This is what we call passion, the fire within. This is what we call passion. Make no mistake, leading with passion inspires the world change. For us, to all our graduates today from this board, I know that I speak to all of those graduates and those people who have brought them along, whether it was family, friend, teacher, professor. Find your passion and use it for good. And to those teachers and professors who've brought them to this place of graduation, we want to thank them today for their dedication to the next leaders of this state. And guess what? We're honoring some of those teachers today. And as I call your name, if you will please stand, we would like to say thank you for the outstanding job that you have done. The State Board of Education would like to recognize our Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, which are the highest U.S. honors of K-12 STEM educators. And each year, up to 110 teachers nationwide may be recognized by the White House for their excellence and impact. Anyone can nominate a STEM teacher in grades K through 12. The application includes a reflective narrative, a 30-minute classroom video, 3 recommendation letters, and supporting materials demonstrating the teacher's expertise, their leadership, and the impact on student learning. State committees select up to 6 finalists, 3 from the state to go to the White House Office of Science and Technology, while OSTP paused awards announced during COVID during 2020. In January of 2025, it released awardees for 2021 through 2023. South Carolina has 2 recipients each year, totaling 6 awardees. And I would like for them to stand as I read their name. Jennifer Hines was 2022 from Greenwood 50 Northside Middle School. Ruth Howell was 2022, Spartanburg 5, Lyman Elementary School. Don't believe she's with us today, but congratulations. Dr. Nicole Yamati from Wenatchee School District, Wenatchee High School. Okay, let's give her a round of applause. She's not here. Also, Susan Scott, 2023, Lexington School District 1, White Knoll High School. Congratulations. Catherine Thompson, 2021, Academy for the Arts, Science and Technology, Horry County Schools. Welcome. Kirsten Bullington, 2023, Richland School District 2, Student Innovation Center at Richland 2 Institute of Innovation. Congratulations. Congratulations to all of you. We are so proud of you, proud that you are in South Carolina giving your talent and your expertise to our students. And certainly we welcome you to stay with us today, but you may have had a long waiting. If you have other things to do, we certainly understand that. But thank you again. Mr. John Tyler is our parliamentarian. Do you have a report today?
Not today, madam.
Not today. We've been working him too hard, so he doesn't have one today. We now enter into our public comment, and we certainly appreciate your interest in public education. And typically, the state board will allot 5 minutes for your comments, and that takes up the 30-minute period that we set aside for that. However, we have over 6 people today to speak, and we certainly want to make sure that we hear from all of you. And since we're hearing your comments for the first time, it is our policy to accept your comments as information. And if we have questions or need any additional information, we'll certainly contact you at a later date. But we want to thank you that you understand our procedure. So do I hear a motion that we waive the 5-minute to a 3-minute for each in order to get in? Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I recommend that we waive the ruling and have a 3-minute.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Hanley, second.
Very good. You've heard the motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed likewise? Motion carries. Beginning with Tinley Middleton, South Carolina Association of School Librarians. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Tenley Middleton. I have been a resident of South Carolina for almost 25 years. I live in York County. I am the current president-elect of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. I have been a school librarian for 12 years. I have a Master's of Library and Information Science from the University of South Carolina, and I have a Master of Education in Learning Design and Technology from Winthrop University. I would like to speak to some misinformation regarding book bans, the censoring of material, the role of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians, and the role of the American Library Association. I'm proud of my work as a school librarian. I'm glad I get to help young adults on their information journeys. I think the best way we can educate our students is to help them find quality information, provide opportunities for them to develop critical thinking skills, and let them create, display, share that information about what they are learning with others. Therefore, it is disappointing to see this profession spoken about in any type of negative light, but the recent comments made during this board's meeting are simply unfounded. I have never seen a documented incident of a book with literary merit being used to groom a child. In fact, I would think any book speaking about consent, boundaries, or the ability to say no to unwanted physical contact would not be an effective tool for that purpose. Many of the books that have been banned this year or that are being considered for a ban deal with sexual abuse. I want the young adults that I teach to know that they can say no. Why would we withhold that information from them? The American Library Association exists to support libraries. They help library leaders develop, promote, and improve library and information services. The American Library Association doesn't tell our local libraries what policies and procedures they have to enact. They provide resources on best practices and accreditation for library science programs. The South Carolina Association of School Librarians exists to support school librarians in our state. We don't tell our school librarians what policies and procedures they have to enact. We provide resources and training on best practices so that our librarians can continue to develop as educators. Collection development is an important part of the school librarian's role. I would be happy to sit down with any member of this board and show them the steps I take to build the collection for my school. The books I select for a high school audience are vastly different from the books an elementary school librarian selects. We use many tools to make these decisions, including professional book reviews, publisher comments, book award lists, our individual school or district selection criteria, and the requests of our students and staff. I carefully vet every title I purchase to the best of my ability using the tools I have for that purpose, as it would be impossible for me to read every one. Once again, I am proud to be a school librarian. I'm proud of the work that I do in selecting materials.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Middleton. Thank you so much. Jamie Gregory of South Carolina Association of School Librarians. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Gregory. I currently work as a school librarian. I have spent 20 years working as an educator in this state. I am the mother of children who were part of the public school system, and I am myself a graduate of a South Carolina public high school. I am also the current president of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians, or SCASL for short. I'm here today to speak to you about the consequences of Regulation 43-170 as experienced directly by members of our organization, in the hopes that as a board you will vote to either amend the regulation or repeal it entirely, as it is unnecessary, has infringed students' First Amendment rights, and caused undue harm for SC educators. Last year, our organization relayed many concerns we had about the regulation, which unfortunately have come to fruition. We were grateful to hear the thoughtful discourse which took place at the April meeting, during which members questioned the logic of how one person is able to submit a complaint and have a book banned from the entire state when that book is not an issue in other districts around the state. But we were most heartened to hear Dr. Shields' remarks, because instead of just being told that a list of books was problematic, he chose to speak directly to the school librarians in his district. He asked for their input and expertise and valued it enough to share with this board. This is the type of collaboration that should be the norm among professionals and colleagues. An unintended consequence of the regulation, which we previously warned about, is harassment of school librarians. Our members have confidentially shared stories throughout this school year of local political groups naming them personally on social media, as well as the schools where they work, in efforts to spread defaming disinformation that damages their reputations. Others have been told not to purchase any new books this year, while waiting to see the actions this board would take to implement Regulation 43-170. And some have even decided on their own not to order any books they think could possibly be targeted by the regulation. All of these scenarios are unacceptable and are the direct result of rhetoric stemming from Regulation 43-170. And I don't think any of you would agree that this type of climate best serves our students and teachers. Throughout this school year, school librarians have listened to other people giving public comment, defame us by accusing us of felonies, name-calling, and attempting to spread fear and paranoia about our entire profession. To put it as simply as possible, it is a gross mistake to assume that a book with perceived sexually explicit content has been placed in a school library or classroom solely in order to harm children on purpose. What has really disturbed school librarians the most through the implementation of this regulation is the assumption some of you are so ready to make that we seek to harm children on purpose. And I believe we can do better.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. Patrick Lawrence.
Hey everyone, thank
Hello.
you for taking comments today. If I stumble, my notes are a little bit messed up because I'm not left-handed, so bear with me, please.
Mr. Lawrence,
yes,
are
ma'am.
you with a group?
I am here by myself.
Okay,
Here
thank
as a-
you. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. I am here as the proud parent of two boys in the Lancaster County School District, actually. I'm also a researcher and a teacher on issues of free speech and literary censorship history. We all probably agree that not all books are right for all readers, and we probably agree parents and guardians play an incomparable role in kids' lives that extends to a unique interest in their education. And we probably agree that South Carolina schools could do more to meet each student where they are so they can grow into good neighbors, responsible citizens, and capable leaders. With so much to agree on, it's a shame that this regulation divides us so much. But Regulation 43-170 is a divisive regulation in part because it treats all students and all readers the same, and with regard to some content, it treats all students from kindergarten to graduation as having exactly the same vulnerabilities and capacity for understanding. All the way back in 1868, British courts ruled that the standard for restricting a book was whether it tended to corrupt the most vulnerable minds. Brought to the U.S. in 1879, this became the standard that banned D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover, Dreiser's An American Tragedy, and Joyce's Ulysses. But in 1957, a unanimous Supreme Court pushed back, declaring that restricting material for all, because it isn't appropriate for some, is, quote, to burn the house to roast the pig. Moreover, they concluded that doing so, quote, curtails one of those liberties of the individual that history has attested as the indispensable conditions for the maintenance and progress of a free society. That's the danger of a one-size-fits-all approach. And there are other ways this regulation goes against the tradition. From the 1950s through the 1970s, it was repeatedly affirmed that considering a book as a whole was necessary to judge the impact of difficult content and the artistic vision that called for it. Did Sister Carrie learn she had been taken advantage of by unscrupulous rakes? Did Holden Caulfield learn something about himself through his experience with prostitutes? Without the whole story, one risked throwing the baby out with the bath, losing out on the valuable moral lessons of transformative literature. No doubt the board has heard that the Constitution can withstand greater restrictions on the rights of young people than adults, and that K-12 instructional materials are government speech. In these ways, the regulation may seem permissible, but that doesn't mean it doesn't fly in the face of legal tradition, because the best minds for 70 years have agreed that it demeans a free society if the standard for the many is based on what's suitable for the few. And they have agreed that taking passages out of context means misunderstanding a fundamental truth about literature and education and of life, which is that we become stronger through our challenges, not weaker because of them. All of this is to say that we are divided by this regulation because its blanket bans fly in the face of decades or generations of public discussion about how best to balance a society that is both safe and free.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Carrie Kearney.
Hi, thank you. Get a timer here. Okay, my name is Carrie Kearney, and I'm a lawyer from Beaufort County. I'm the mother of 7 children who have all been educated in the Beaufort County public school system, so I have been very dialed into the education issues in South Carolina. I was paying close attention a year ago when your board passed Regulation 43-170, and at the last board meeting when you all discussed regulations. I heard more than one time the opinions being offered were not by or from lawyers, so here I am to speak as a lawyer in South Carolina. First, a bit of background. In October of 2023, Superintendent Weaver hired an outside lawyer to the tune of $25,000 in taxpayer money to draft the proposed regulations. She and this outside lawyer told your board that you had to pass these regulations to comply with a law that was being considered by the state legislature. But in fact, regulations are never required to be drafted prior to legislation being passed into law. To the contrary, a law is passed and then regulations are crafted in order to comply with the requirements of the statute. Also, you've been told that the legislature reviewed and approved these regulations. This is also not true. The regulations were never considered by both houses, but were enacted based on a procedural loophole that allowed for the regulations that had not been addressed prior to the end of the legislative session to become law. A loophole that prompted the legislature to change the rules this year in order to prevent this from happening again. It's my professional opinion that you received bad advice. Or, if it was not bad legal advice, it was certainly biased legal advice. A client hires a lawyer to promote their interests and agendas. A lawyer will interpret the law based on the client's interest, and, as in this case, if the client wants to ban books, that's the type of regulations that will be drafted. In the past few months, you have seen for yourself that these regulations are, in fact, pro-book banning. The regulations are written so strictly that your board has been left with no choice but to ban almost every book that has come before you. But the good news is that you have the power to change this. First, Section 59-560, you are given the power to ignore instructions from the Department of Education if you feel those instructions are not in the best interests of the public schools in South Carolina. Second, you have the power to amend or repeal these regulations. This process is covered by the South Carolina Statute 123-120, and I handed out information about that at the committee meeting. Hopefully you all got a copy. All of this being said, I'd like to remind you that lawyers give legal advice based on the interests of their clients. You are being given legal advice based on the agenda of one individual, not based on the best interests of our public school system. I encourage you to seek a second opinion. As a lawyer, I'm advising you that your board has the power to change these regulations, protect public education in South Carolina, and stop these statewide book bans to better serve our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kearney. Josh Malkin.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Malkin. I'm a lawyer with and advocacy director for the ACLU of South Carolina. And a happier timeline, I was a middle school and high school math teacher. I thank you again for your public service and your responsiveness to your constituents. Again, how we feel about books aside, I know that almost every one of you has been responsive to your constituents, and that's a model for the state. I appreciate that. To echo some of those who have come before me, the outcomes of this regulation are nonsensical. We're taking a single passage, a single stanza out of a 400, 500-page book, and then we're saying it's not appropriate for any child in this state ages 5 to 18. I know that I'm talking to professors, acting superintendents, former local board chairs, principals. I cannot believe that you all truly believe that one person should have the right to make a decision for over 1.5 million parents in this state. I cannot believe that any one of the dedicated educators I'm speaking to right now believes that's the best educational practice. I'm not surprised we're getting nonsensical outcomes. This regulation was drafted via a very similar nonsensical process. The drafting attorney took one proviso out of a larger code section in the South Carolina Code and used it to essentially change what the definition of obscenity is in both South Carolina State Code and federal law. Section 16-15-305 in its entirety, which is the code section that defines harmful material, defines obscenity, which is what I think we're all worried about here, says that a material is obscene if it, one, to the average person applying contemporary community standards, the material depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct specifically defined by subsection C. 2, the average person applying contemporary community standards relating to the depiction or description of sexual conduct would find that the material taken as a whole, that's straight from federal case law, appeals to the prurient interest in sex. 3, to a reasonable person, the material taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Folks on the review committee aren't required to read the books. Y'all don't know whether the books have literary, scientific, artistic, or political value. And again, the only part of this code section that shows up in the regulation is the definition of sexual conduct. And I'll end here. There seem to be two opinions in this discussion in this room. There are those of us who just want students and parents and educators to have the right to work together to make decisions for what is best for their children. Then there are those who seem only content with imposing their beliefs about a book on every child in this state.
Thank you, Mr. Malcolm. Laura Haverkamp.
Hello, I am Dr. Laura Haverkamp, a 24-year K-12 educator, retired, and a current professor of library and information science. First, I want to say thank you to this board for banning cell phones in schools. I worked, when I worked in Richland 1 School District, one of the phrases that was hammered into our heads was data-driven instruction and data-driven leadership. Both anecdotally for my teacher friends, and I have a lot, cell phones are damaging in the classroom. And by research, I can see that cell phones are damaging in the classroom. If I search ERIC database, which is the Educational Resource Database, if you haven't searched it before, and it indexes 775 educational resources, journals, refereed materials. I can search for cell phones and harm and find 42 articles. One of them is from the National Institute of Health. It says that screen time impacts obesity, sleep disorders, depression, and anxiety in children. If we look at data, and I know that you care about children because you are here. If we look at data and search ERIC for reading, even reading and sexual content, and harm to children, there are articles on how some reading strategies can be harmful. There's an occasional article about bibliotherapy and how we need to be careful if a child is fragile. If a child comes to you with suicidal ideation, you don't really want to give them a book that has a character that commits suicide. We can agree on that. But there's no real data that says that reading is harmful. And I invite you to research behind me. Furthermore, in a search of U.S. newspapers, in the newspaper source database, looking back 10 years, I looked back and searched for harm to children, child sex abuse, librarians and child sex abuse. There were 0 articles in the United States in the past 10 years about librarians grooming, harming children. And I bring you that data because I can't remember which board member was upset and worrying about librarians grooming children, but it's not there. Data does not support this. And if I search for child abuse, child harm, child sex abuse, and church leadership, there are over 400 articles that say that. We're looking at the wrong people. Librarians aren't harming our children. If we work with a shared reality and a shared basis in fact, I think we will better serve the children in South Carolina.
Thank you, Ms. Haverkamp. Sherry East with the South Carolina Educational Association.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good
I
afternoon.
am not here to speak about books, but I thank everyone who has. So my name is Sherry East, and I'm a high school science teacher from Rock Hill, but I'm currently serving as the South Carolina Education Association president, and I'm here today to speak on Regulation 43-234, the defined program in grades 9 through 12 for the graduation requirement. And we are in support of adding the Emancipation Proclamation that is not included currently, but we did, in reviewing the document, find some inconsistencies within the document I think may just be an oversight. I don't know, but I feel like I need to address them. So our specific questions and concerns are in Section D on page 3, it says you are required to pass a classroom exam covering specific content. So currently we pass a class, like you have to pass U.S. History and Constitution as a graduation requirement, but you do not have to pass the exam itself. Just as I teach biology, my students take an EOC, but they are not required to pass the EOC to earn the biology credit. So it seems like some of the language in here talks about you will be required to pass a class versus you will be required to pass a test. So if you look, it says, so our questions are also, is this what the intent of this is, or is the EOC going to stay in place, and or is this examination going to be something else? Because it does mention in here on page 3 that it would be, as part of the high school curriculum regarding the government required credits, would take a civics test as defined as 100 questions that the officers of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services use to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the fundamentals of the United States history and principles. And it says you must pass this as part of your graduation requirements. So is that, we're just confused on what we're doing there. Is that a deletion should have happened years ago, or just asking? Like, what are we doing there? So we, again, we do not oppose the requirement to pass a course in U.S. history and Constitution. However, we do oppose a single high-stakes test in one subject that would prevent a child from graduating, because we do know that the U.S. history EOC is the lowest performing of those, and our graduation rates would be very different if it meant you must pass that test to graduate. So just this, what the language is in this says, so just check it on that. But on further reading in this document, I did find some other concerns that made someone want to look at. It says that districts also must offer driver's ed, and we quit doing that about 20 years ago, I think. The other one is the CPR and AED training. That's also listed as a requirement. I just bringing it to your attention that those are in this regulation, and I'm not sure that's currently the practice
Thank you, Ms. East. We will certainly be looking into that as we move forward, so thank you for bringing that today. Mona Fleming with Advocates for Intellectual Freedom.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity to share comments today. I'm not just an advocate for intellectual freedom. I'm a retired educator, 36 years in the public schools of South Carolina, a public school graduate and a public college graduate, and I have 2 grandchildren in public school at this time. And if I leave early, it is not to be rude. I'm going to see my grandson play t-ball.
That is great.
Yes. So, all right. This is my first time reading from a phone. So, when Regulation 43-170 was first presented to the State Board of Education, citizens and citizen groups from around the state wrote letters repeatedly, spoke repeatedly at State Board of Education meetings to voice concerns, but to no avail. It was rubber stamped and has wreaked havoc ever since. Please know that suggestions were made to amend the regulation to protect intellectual freedom in our schools and their libraries. The State Board of Education was reminded that school districts across the state already had procedures in place for book challenges. In fact, I served on a committee to review a challenge book in my school district as a community member in 2023. All of us were required to read the book in its entirety, which is not being done by the Instructional Materials Review Committee. The first requirement must be that challengers and review committees read the entire book. Relying on a disreputable source like Book Looks, started by a Moms for Liberty member, and simply citing profanity and sexual references, not the book as a whole, is a weak way to evaluate literature. And I was a reading and English teacher, so I did a lot of evaluating and teaching students to evaluate literature. And I want to remind you, since I brought up Moms for Liberty, that the Southern Poverty Law Center lists Moms for Liberty as an extremist group. You can look it up online. I ask you to consider amending the regulation to ensure a committee that the committees represent our school communities, to ensure each committee member reads the challenge book in its entirety, to ensure that one parent does not have control over what other parents may allow their children to read. In fact, I have a cousin who said, if my father had had somebody telling me not to read a book, I would have asked them, were they crazy? Because we want our children to read books. Most importantly, citizens' First Amendment rights to intellectual freedom are violated with each book ban that occurs. I ask you to amend this censorship bill.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming, and thank all of you for your input today. We appreciate that. All is taken into consideration. We now move to our State Board of Education committees, beginning with our Policy and Legislative Committee report. The Policy and Legislation Committee met and heard 2 items for approval and 2 items for information. The request for approval was from Lexington County School District 2 with property, both A and B. No action was taken on that. And for information, we had proposed legislative amendments to our Board of Education Regulation 243-2 interpreter regulation, students who are deaf. We also heard a presentation from our charter schools. The report stands as a motion made from the committee. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion concerning this? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, likewise. Motion carries. We now hear from our Education Professions Committee, Dr. Johnson, to present that committee's report.
Thank you, Ms.
Ms. Allison. Today, the Education Professions Committee met on one action item on a new alternative route program between Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens County. The short name for it is TEACH AOP. I like that. This action item was approved and placed on the consent agenda. We did not hear any information items today, so that concludes my report.
Okay, the report stands as a motion made from the committee. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion concerning those? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Our Standard Learning and Accountability Committee did not have a meeting today. They had no materials to bring up, and now that brings us to our Instructional Materials Review Committee report.
Madam Chair, the Instructional Materials Review Committee has not had a meeting since our last meeting. However, we still have the 10 items that the board chose to delay until this month that were heard at the last meeting. I won't bore you with the entire report that I read last time, but I will remind you that that report still stands as a motion before this board and asking for action on the consent agenda.
Okay, you have heard the motion to be moved to the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
There is a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Moving to Mrs. Kriminger to present our Educator Licensure Committee report.
Thank you, Chair Allison. The Educator Licensure Committee heard 14 cases today. We approved 1 initial certification, approved 2 public reprimands, and 10 suspensions. 1 case was sent back to the Office of General Counsel for further review. These matters were ratified by the full board ELC earlier today. And a special thank you to Mr. Gunter, who was a great solo act this month for our Office of General
Why am I
Counsel. We
surprised?
appreciate all of your hard work and everything that you put into this committee. A big thank you there. And Madam Chair, Chair Allison, this concludes my report.
Right, the full board Educator License Committee report. Thank you. Approval of the ratification agenda for ELC. Additionally, the full board ratified all actions taken by the ELC committee. And I'd like to have seen that today. And now we move to our consent agenda. All committee items presented to the state board for approval make up this consent agenda. The consent agenda has been distributed. Is there a motion to approve?
Kriminger, so moved.
Kriminger moves. Is there a second?
Johnson, second.
Johnson seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
1 nay, 2 nays. Would you say your name for the O'Shield, nay?
Vincent, nay.
Okay, so there's 17 of us with 2. Okay, motion is approved. Okay. Okay, proposal amendments to our State Board of Education Regulation 43234, defined program 9 through 12 and graduation requirements. This would be our second reading, and Christy Austin recognized.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Board of Education members. Today I'm presenting the second reading for requested regulation changes for 43234 defined program grades 9 through 12 and graduation requirements. The South Carolina Department of Education is recommending a change to Regulation 43-234-1 to update language aligned with current state statute 5929-120A to add the Emancipation Proclamation as a requirement of high school instruction. Additionally, Act 26 of 2021 removed the phrase "including the study of and devotion to American institutions and ideals," so we are proposing the removal of this phrase. Also, we have continued to receive feedback, including from the Palmetto State Teachers Association, on this regulation change. Based on the feedback, we are proposing an additional revision. In the same section, 43-234-1D, it includes the student must pass a classroom examination on the provisions and principles of the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers, and American institution and ideals. We are proposing a change to the wording to passing a classroom examination to passing a course, because the students are required to pass the course and not an assessment. We are adding this wording change to change practice in line with regulation. These revisions to 43-234 defined program are specific to history and changes in law, but we will be revisiting regulations for further updates in the near future. Do you have any questions?
You have any questions of Ms. Austin? Since this was brought up earlier, there probably are some questions. Yes, Dr. O'Shields, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. In looking at it, and I think you clarified it, because I wrote down the districts must have driver's ed based on the comment from SCEA, and we don't offer that anymore because we have so many private providers. As I understand it, this is only dealing with the history portion of what had been some clarifications as we take it today. Is that
Absolutely
correct?
correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? Any other questions?
I have one question, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I guess a classroom course is, the test is administered by the teacher, and then an assessment is a general assessment that's uniform for all schools. Is that what the difference is?
So the EOC is required of all students who take U.S. History and Constitution, which is part of the defined program. So by saying they have to pass a classroom assessment, that could be vague language, whereas we know they have to pass a course. So but they are still taking the EOC in U.S. History and Constitution as part of the assessment program.
Are they tested or not?
They are.
Okay.
Any other discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve the second reading of Regulation 43-234?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the staff recommendation for second reading of the regulation to include the suggested amendment to change classroom examination to course in Section 234-1D.
Very good. Is there a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
We move now to the ratification of proposed legislative amendments to our State Board of Education Regulation 43-243-2, interpreter regulations for students who are deaf. And Robert Cathcart will come forward with his bow tie on.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the State Board of Education. Glad to see at least one bow tie up there as well. Looks to be garnered as well, so I appreciate that. Just briefly, I wanted to touch on a couple of things as we go through this regulation, give you a little bit of procedural history, and then finally kind of end with what the proposed amendments are. As this presentation was given somewhat by Philip Cease this morning, Director of Governmental Affairs, to those of you who are at PNL, but just wanted to kind of give another update and be ready to answer any questions y'all might have. So briefly on the procedural history front, this is all governed once again by the South Carolina Administrative Procedures Act, except for those of you whose eyes are glazing over and ears are closed, I'll let you know when to tune back in. But just very briefly, so this was passed last year, this regulation, in an attempt to ensure that educational interpreters had kind of a level of standard expectation. So this board was making sure that there was some kind of a level of generally accepted competence. When this went, and after this was passed by this board, it went to the General Assembly. The General Assembly generally has 120 days in which they can review a regulation, and at that time they have 4 choices. The first is they can let it time out over 120 days. The second is they can affirmatively pass it. So through a joint resolution of both the House and Senate, if they both pass that resolution, it then becomes full force and effective law at that point. The third option is to introduce a resolution of disapproval. If one chamber gets it out of committee, it'll pause the regulation indefinitely. So it's almost like a way to kill it. They could also affirmatively pass that, which means the regulation does not go into effect, and you can't bring a similar regulation in future. The fourth option, which is where we are now, is they can ask us to withdraw and resubmit with certain amendments. So in this case, that's where we are now. The regulation is paused until we submit any amendments we wish to make, but they've requested these amendments to be made specifically. First of all, that the effective date be moved back a year. I think that's somewhat prudent in this case because given the way that the calendar's working, this won't go into effect till next year anyways, and so it, from an administrative standpoint, makes sense to kind of push that back. Secondarily, it raises the level of skill needed in that first year. I remember there was a lot of conversation amongst this board about wanting to have that level of skill higher. I said it goes from a 3.2 to a 3.5. And then finally, increases the amount of hours of professional development needed. So this time, more than happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Any questions for Mr. Cathcart? Yes.
Did we ever determine how many people this is going to affect that are currently employed? Do we know?
Yes, ma'am. I don't think there's been any additional research done on that level. I apologize.
Any further discussion? If not, is there a motion to ratify Regulations 43243-2? Is there a motion?
Kreminger, so move.
Grimminger, is there a second?
Mathis, second.
Mathis. Although, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by the say of aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And now I would like to call on Dr. Ferguson, our Deputy Superintendent, for some information. And Dr. Ferguson, I just want to say congratulations. I know you're going to be with us for a little while longer, and I know that it's been announced out there. So on behalf of the board, I just want to say we're going to miss you here while we're all here, but we wish you Godspeed in Darlington County.
Thank you, Chair Allison. It is bittersweet. I certainly have enjoyed my time at the agency. This team is amazing, and the work and mission we get to work towards every day is so important. But I could not resist the call to go home to my own community and serve the children there. So I will, as Dr. Haney and Dr. Shields and Dr. Mathis know, I will not be far away. So you will still be hearing from me and hearing about my opinions, because I have a lot of them. But today, Superintendent Weaver asked me to share some remarks on her behalf, and since she was not going to be able to be with us today, and some updates. And I wanted to start with something that you all may also be aware of, which is that schools across South Carolina are currently in the midst of spring testing. And so this is the time of year in which we are gaining important insights into student learning and growth that helps us inform our instructional decisions. We are incredibly grateful to the educators and the school leaders for their thoughtful ways that they are supporting students, not just in the logistics of testing, but also in encouraging them to do their best and to show what they have learned this year. And so testing time is always a stressful time. It is not an easy time to be a student or an administrator, but it is such an important time. And the students have been well taught. It is their time to show up and show us what they have been taught this year. So we wanted to recognize that. In that same vein, we have talked a lot this year about the changes that are coming with Read to Succeed 2.0 and the raising of that limit for the possibility for third grade retention, and wanted to update this board on the work that staff has been doing to help support districts in that transition. And so we have been holding a lot of meetings to bring together folks from across the state to say, what can we be doing better? How can we support in the the implementation of a strong literacy foundation for those K-3 students, but also if students are not quite meeting that mark, how can we accelerate their learning in the accelerated third year that would come after, and also make sure that they have a strong summer reading camp experience. Because what we know is that if children do not have a strong reading foundation as they enter into fourth grade, they really are not prepared to make that transition from learning to read to reading to learn. So that has been a lot of the work that we have been doing over the last few weeks and months to help bring together folks from across the districts to engage in those conversations. And then Ms. Allison talked earlier about how this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and so wanted to make sure that we showed a video of our Teacher of the Year celebration and shared that with you. I know many of you were able to be there, but wanted to share this with everyone. So if y'all will roll that.
The South Carolina 2026 State Teacher of the Year is Corey Biedenbauer.
Teaching is truly more than just a profession, but it is a calling. It's about lighting those sparks that turn into flames of curiosity. It's about seeing potential where others might see challenges. It's about building relationships that create trust and open doors to learning. It's not about just teaching lessons in our content, but teaching lessons in resilience, kindness, and courage. And most importantly, to remember we are shaping young futures.
So during this Teacher Appreciation Week, we are so proud to announce that Mr. Corey Biedenbauer from Batesburg-Leesville Middle School in Lexington 3 is the 2026 South Carolina Teacher of the Year. Mr. Biedenbauer is a remarkable educator whose passion really shone through, and he is so impressive in how he talks about his students. He never really talked about what he did in the classroom. He always connected it back to what his students were doing in the classroom. And sitting in on those interviews, it was just a remarkable experience to see that shine through. On a personal note, I also have to say I really appreciate how well he pulls off a bow tie. And that is certainly something that I advocate for. And one day I'm going to get John Tyler into one. But on a more serious note, all of the finalists this year were exceptional. Each one is clearly making a difference in the lives of their students and helping them step into their potential and turn that into a reality. And so I think this Teacher Appreciation Week and meeting many of the educators too who were here today, I got to eat lunch with them, and the stories that they told were just really outstanding. And so South Carolina is full of really hardworking, good teachers who are making a difference in the lives of educators, are making a difference in the lives of students every day. And so one call to action that I have for y'all as we are in this Teacher Appreciation Week is if you could think about that teacher who made a difference in your life, or that teacher who made a difference in the lives of your children or grandchildren, reach out this week and say thank you, write them a note. That's something I try to do every year this time of year, and it is one of the most rewarding things, both to get to write those notes, but also every now and then get to receive those notes. So that's my call to action for y'all today. Thank you, as always, for your continued dedication to South Carolina students, teachers, and schools. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Ferguson. And let's give a big round of applause for all those teachers. Truly great. And I do. Do you remember your first grade teacher? I do. Ms. Lee. I thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Most beautiful. And she was. She made such an impression. In other business now, do any of our board members have anything to share for the good of the order?
Madam Chair, I have
Yes,
something
sir.
here. We in Florence School District 1 had Mr. Sinai Perry at West Florence High School was named the National High School Assistant Principal of the Year.
Wonderful. Great. You'll have to invite him to come see us, too.
And I want to brag, he was one of my interns
Oh,
at my middle
super.
school. Yes.
So you gave him that great foundation. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the board? Don't forget to fill out your travel forms and give them to Tara before you leave. Do I hear a motion?
Madam
That we
Chair,
adjourn?
I make a
Secretary,
motion we
to adjourn.
adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second. I
All
don't know
those
whether I
in
was
favor
first or
say
second.
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise. Safe travels home.
Safe